Hello and welcome to Das Nostalgia. Tetris, the brainchild of Russian mathematician Alexey Pajitnov, and the best-selling game in the world. There's so much to talk about in relation to it, including of course the story of how it got outside of the USSR, but honestly there's plenty to watch or read about that elsewhere. Today I'd like to take a look at official DOS Tetris games, all published by Spectrum HoloByte, a company known for its Falcon series of simulators. But before we begin, let's take a quick look at the original Tetris game. What you see here is one of the early versions of the game from 1986, programmed by Vadim Gerasimov. As you can see, the game is in pretty much the same shape as we know it today, even though Gerasimov and Pajitnov continued improving it for the next 2 years. The only thing that's drastically different is the scoring. You don't get points for clearing lines, but rather just for locking shapes down. The points are subtracted for each line the shape had to travel before it landed, unless you drop it, therefore you're encouraged to drop the shapes and stack them high whenever you can. Additional points are also subtracted if you have the next shape option enabled, as I do. First commercial Western DOS version of Tetris arrived in 1987 when Andromeda Software licensed out the rights to Tetris, the rights it was actually yet to acquire, to a British company Mirrorsoft, who in turn licensed them out to Sphere, who developed and published the game under their Spectrum HoloByte banner. This version credits the original program by Vadim Gerasimov and is clearly based on its concepts. Controls and scoring are both similar, and what this version did was add some production value in the form of pictures inspired by life in the Soviet Union of that time, with a function provided to see a description of each background. 2 versions of this game were released with some minor background variations and an animated plane carrying a banner on the title screen, but there were no notable differences between them.
A memory resident version was also provided, so you could launch the game while some other program was running, in case you decided to play at work, for example.
Over the next few years, Spectrum HoloByte published a bunch of Tetris sequels. Welltris was the first one of those and was released in 1989. Billed as the three-dimensional Tetris, Welltris was also designed by Alexey Pajitnov for Doka Company, one of the first Soviet game publishers. But then it was almost completely rewritten by Spectrum HoloByte. The game is presented in high-resolution EGA, once again featuring pictures of Soviet citizens enjoying their daily lives, but the flat Tetris pit has been turned into a well with 4 walls. This plays pretty much as you'd expect, except for the gravity not functioning at the bottom of the well. The shapes continue falling when they enter the bottom until they hit something. Honestly, despite the interesting way it expands on the original Tetris concept, I find the game rather boring. Let's move on. 1990 brought us a game with a rather confusing title, Faces, Trysts 3. For some reason they decided that calling it Face Trysts was too much, but still wanted Trysts somewhere in the name to capitalize on the brand. Once again, the game was co-designed by Pajitnov, although his name wasn't mentioned on the package this time. From this point on, all the games are presented in VGA and actually have music. The game pieces are now parts of people's faces. Chins, mouths, noses, eyes, and well, whatever is left. 2 pieces are always dropped at the same time. Your task is to form complete faces. You can swap the 2 pieces places and rotate them to reveal different parts. The pieces from different faces can still make a complete one, but you'll get more points if you complete a perfect face. Each of the levels has a different set of faces, such as historical figures or faces from works of art, and there's a very unusual feature that allows you to load your own faces into the game using the provided template. Once again, I personally find this game rather uninteresting, but maybe that has something to do with my inability to play it properly for some reason. Maybe also because everything about it is sort of weird. 1991 brought us another sequel, Wordtris. This time a combination of Scrabble and Tetris. This was the first game on the Spectrum HoloByte line that wasn't designed by Pajitnov. You get letters falling from the top and you must combine them into words. Once again, everything is framed by a theme of life in the USSR. This game can either be fun or super annoying because of its randomness. Long periods of no vowels can mess your whole game up.
The vocabulary is quite generous though, but usually once you have half the pit stacked with consonants, it's not much help. A simultaneous two-player mode is present, either cooperative or competitive, neither of which is particularly exciting, and an option for network play using a modem, a serial cable, or a Novell-compatible network is also provided. Once again, I don't find this game to be super exciting, but this time I just feel that it's because of some issues that could have been resolved by improving on the design. Year 1991 also brought us a proper sequel, a game that expands on the original's concept, Super Tetris. Here the Tetris pit is separated in half by a water line, and your task is to clear it by filling in random holes and making complete lines. Doing so reveals a picture of the cathedral at the bottom of the pit and a small picture on the bottom left related to the theme of the Moscow Circus that the game has as its setting. Then you move on to the next level with more random holes below the waterline, and everything above the waterline carries over into the next level with you. Each complete line gives you a shape made of bombs, 2 bombs per line, that you can use to clear the pit in preparation for your next shape. Also, you can hit special blocks with bombs in order to get additional bonuses, such as removing an extra line or getting a straight shape on your next move. I have to say, having not played this game much back in the day, I've grown to really like it while working on this video. While still being dependent on classic Tetris rules, the game forces you to change your strategy considerably because of your task of clearing the bottom of the pit and working with bombs. It's quite a challenge. And did I mention that it has a shape limit? Also quite surprisingly, the game provides an option to move the shapes diagonally, and it actually transposes the shapes that way, so you can execute moves that were previously impossible in a Tetris game. I really enjoy it, but the game isn't without some quirks. First, I think the playfield is way too small. I think it's a bit tough to see even on the modern size monitor. The Moscow Circus pictures didn't have to be this huge. A soft drop is implemented, meaning pressing down won't instantly drop the shape to the lowest available position, which is nice, but just increases speed of the drop instead. But the shapes lock way too quickly, leading to a lot of mistakes while trying to play faster. A cooperative or competitive multiplayer is also available, locally or over a network, but I feel that the players end up getting in each other's way often. Overall, I think this is a good Tetris sequel. Just challenging and quirky enough to be fun. Year 1992 brought us Tetris Classic. Not gonna lie, this is my favorite Tetris variant. Not just for DOS, but ever. It has beautiful presentation with backgrounds based on Alexander Pushkin's Ruslan and Ludmila, which in turn was based on a folk tale. And I really love the game's music. The gameplay itself is, as expected, your regular classic Tetris, but with a bunch of new optional improvements. You have an option for soft drop, which functions really well, a new scoring option takes the number of cleared lines into account, and a way to rotate shapes both counterclockwise and clockwise. An option to move shapes diagonally is also present, but this time it just moves them down and to the side, making all the moves in compliance to classic Tetris rules. All these things make the game really enjoyable to me, except I don't care for two-way rotation because I still only rotate the shapes counterclockwise out of habit. A variety of multiplayer modes is provided. A cooperative or competitive game inside the same pit, and a dual pit mode with an option to play with exact same pieces and an option to send garbage to your opponent each time you clear some lines. Network play is also available. I love this version and would recommend it to everyone. And that is the end of Spectrum HoloByte's Tetris for DOS releases. They also released these games in 2 compilations and ported Super Tetris and Tetris Classic to Windows 3.1. This wasn't the end of their collaboration with Alexey Pajitnov though, as they also published another game he designed, Night Moves, and attached his name to a Windows port of Puyo Puyo called Quirks. In 1993, Spectrum HoloByte bought Microprose and started publishing games under that name exclusively in 1996. And this is it for today. Thank you for watching, and play Tetris!